Hello again. Welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony.
I'm Peterson.
I'm their friend and guest, Alan Singer.
Dr. Alan Singer, educator, historian, joining us again for Media Watch. I'm hearing a little bit of audio delay so far, guys. Let's hope that was just in the opening intro. This is being brought to you by the good graces of EVT Educational Productions, Manhattan Neighborhood Network, Zoom, taping the Wednesday before our Monday air. And let's jump right into the fact that last week, just before our last show, right after our last show aired, we got word, it was late last week, right, that Bill Russell had passed. Was it on the weekend, this past weekend? Bill Russell passed, Nichelle Nichols passed, a couple of other people of note passed, but those two were significant to us because we in the media try to deal with, in Media Watch, try to deal with issues and individuals that have an impact on communities of color globally, locally, and nationally. And you could not have gotten larger figures than Nichelle Nichols, the actress, and Bill Russell, the amazing Boston Celtics center. But they were more than actor, actress, and athletes. They were basically human rights, civil rights activists in their own right. Correct, guys?
No, very much so. I mean, Bill Russell, I was a kid when Russell was at his prime, and he epitomized outstanding basketball. You know, when the Knicks became great, they became great because they learned how to play Russell basketball. He was smart, he positioned, he was intense, he studied. But the point you made about his activism, I think, is very, very important. You know, in 1961, when the Celtics were playing in St. Louis, they barred the black basketball players from the hotel, and Russell organized the black players. They said, we're not playing if we can't stay in the hotel. In 63, Russell marched with Martin Luther King in Washington. And in 67, when Muhammad Ali was deposed as heavyweight champ because he wouldn't support the war in Vietnam, Russell stood by Ali. So Russell epitomized the athlete, the activist, but the thinker, because his basketball was based on thinking.
Yeah, he was more than just an acrobatic athlete. He was a smart, savvy. That's why he became a successful player coach as well. I think he won a championship and at least one, maybe two.
As coach, correct, too, as coach.
So yeah, I think he had 11 championships, but not to belabor how great an athlete he was. He was an amazing pioneer, activist in civil rights activism and human rights. Nichelle Nichols, Bob, I know you know a little bit about some of her stellar attributes.
Well, I mean, those of us who grew up watching Star Trek on TV, I mean, back then you didn't see too many black faces at all in the major TV series. And the fact that she was in there, just a part of the crew of the Enterprise, you know, was surprising by itself. But yeah, her activism as well played a good part in her career. She at one point, and Alan was you folks were explaining it before we got on the air, she was about to leave the show after the first year because she didn't think that they were using her enough. She had a long career in, I guess, entertainment and also as a singer, I think you said, Alan and Ray. And she decided she wanted to leave, but after a chat with the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., who said that her visibility was essential. And it was because of that conversation that she stayed on the show. And the rest, as they say, is history. So rest in peace, Nichelle. Quite the career and activism.
Yeah, and I don't know, Ray. I don't know if you were a Star Trek fan or not, but
I became a Star Trek fan in the reruns.
Mhm.
I missed it live. I watched the reruns though, and I got right into it.
You're not the only one, because I believe even though Desilu had faith in it, the thing got canceled after like the first or second season. But
I think it had 3 seasons.
then it got picked up in reruns and had a long life. It's still being aired.
And in movies, and the movies were important because in the movies, her role expanded. She didn't just sit there looking attractive. She had a much bigger role in the movies. And she went from being a lieutenant to being a commander.
Quite a battlefield promotion.
Yes.
Yes.
But interestingly enough, those deaths occurred right after the soft opening of the Jackie Robinson Museum in Lower Manhattan, right there off Canal Street, right, Bob? You were telling me something or other about you checked into it and it turned out to be not the official opening. It was a soft opening. Tell us a little bit more about what you discovered.
Yeah, last week, as we taped today on the Wednesday before the show, they had the soft opening of the Jackie Robinson Museum in, as you said, at Canal Street in Varick here in New York. And I had seen that building for years with the signs up and the signage and museum coming, watch this spot. And it took, I think it started in 2008 to get that museum open. But yes, they finally had the soft open of the museum. The public will get in September. And much to my personal surprise, 100-year-old Rachel Robinson was there. His widow was there to cut the ribbon. So, I mean, by itself, it's quite the landmark in the history of activism. Jackie Robinson, not just sports, but in activism. And that's what that museum is all about. It's not about his World Series ring, although I was shocked to see it. I've never seen a World Series ring with Brooklyn on it. Mm-hmm. and other things. But no, it's not a shrine. And Rachel Robinson said that it's not a shrine. It's the legacy of what he's done, and it's for the people. It's for us to absorb what's there.
What I read when I dug into it, because I was surprised. But once you
explain, it took 12 years to open it.
When it turned out to be a soft opening, and that's why we didn't hear much about it, because in the media, we would have expected to hear a heck of a lot more about something like that happening. But they selected some key people, some athletes and some activists, because they wanted to make the museum, in their words, not a shrine to sports, but to his entire life of activism. Because before he even became an athlete, he was an activist in the military, doing sit-ins on stuff for officers that were being discriminated against in certain accommodations. So he was an activist his entire life. So Rachel Robinson wanted to make sure this museum was a tribute to her husband's total being, total person, not Jackie Robinson, the color barrier breaker of Major League Baseball, but Jackie Robinson, the activist man, the leader, civics leader, activist in business, and opened doors to many other Blacks in corporate America as part of his legacy. So yeah, I'm glad that opened and they did it the way they did. But again, within the context of the total person, we cannot get off this topic of who you are and what you stand for. I just saw it yesterday, the fact that Greg Norman confirmed that Tiger Woods turned down a giant wad of cash to take part in this live whatever fake golf tournament, new league that the Saudis have put together to try to buy respectability after chopping up Khashoggi and after doing all kinds of crazy stuff in the war in Yemen. Now they're trying to use tennis and they're trying to use golf to buy respectability. And so they offered Tiger somewhere in the vicinity of $600,000 to $800,000 to come join their tournament. And he flatly turned them down. So what's your take on that, guys? You know, Tiger, you guys have followed his career.
Well, I commend him for it. Absolutely. I'm not sure what his motivation was. Was it to save face, or does he really have the heart to say, "Hey, look, this is not me. I'm not playing this game. I'm not, I don't care what the money is. I have standards. I have beliefs that I am sticking up for." I
Okay.
don't know. That's my take. I mean, I commend him for it. I'm not sure what his motivation was.
This was also a Trump-sponsored tournament, so we're looking at a Trump-Saudi Arabia alliance, and it's disturbing that anybody would get in bed with these two.
Bob, you're a big sports guy. What do you think?
I mean, Tiger's reputation doesn't need another hit, so I get it from that standpoint. Although I do believe that he had the integrity to not accept that. I mean, that's a lot of money to walk away from. I mean, but it's a Trump golf course in New Jersey, sponsored by Live, like you said, the Saudi government, the same one that killed and beheaded and chopped up that journalist in, what was it, the
Washington Post column
in Turkey at their, and so I can see he didn't want his hands sullied by that. So good for you, Tiger, for walking away from that.
My personal take on Tiger is he seemed to be dealing from his own personal take on what this means to golf and how he feels about golf based on what I read his comments were. And basically what he was doing was he turned down their money. He just said, "No, you don't have enough money to buy me to join your ranks." And he basically excoriated some of those other golfers for taking the Saudi money. And in his words, I'm paraphrasing, "You are turning your back on the people who gave you your fame and your prosperity, who brought you to where you are. And now because somebody has bigger pockets, you're going to turn your back on the people who gave you your start and kept you on your platform just for a bigger paycheck." And he just flat out said, that is not acceptable as far as he was concerned. So that's his own personal take, personal integrity at thing. I'm not sure he was thinking of Khashoggi or the Saudis' bad reputation. I know he and Trump used to golf together. So it ain't like he ain't familiar with the MAGA world. So I'm guessing that was just his personal stance, and more power to him. That's a lot of integrity, because I don't know, $1 billion. There's actually rumors, the numbers flying around in the media right now. Tiger turned down $1 billion. And then you hear things like 600 to 700 to 800,000. And Greg said,
incredible money.
Was, the numbers are in that vicinity. That was as much as Norman would say, but more power to Tark. But speaking of MAGA world and being familiar with MAGA world, to flip the switch and make the pivot, the MAGA people ran the tables in Arizona in yesterday's primaries. All the Trump people that he wanted to get into particular Republican positions for the fall election all seem to have won. I'm not sure the gubernatorial primary has been too close to call it while we're taping, but it looks like his person may win that as well. And if they do, he'll run the table. And so the question is, if all the wackos from MAGA world become the Republican slate, will the Democrats be able to capitalize? Because they're so far out there and there's so many election deniers. Will the independents, the other Republicans, and the Democrats have enough in the popular vote to defeat those folks? The columnist from the Arizona paper that I read said, it looks like they should, but the Democrats have been known to shoot themselves in the foot. And I'm not sure they won't do that in this instance. So what else happened on primary day yesterday, guys?
Oh, one of the bigger crazies, this guy Greitens, who was running for the Senate in Missouri on the Republican, he lost. We're talking about a guy whose campaign video showed him walking around with an AK-14, said he was rhino hunting. He was hunting for Republicans who weren't really right wing. He lost, and that's a good thing. But the thing that I find scary is it seems that Democratic money was going into the campaign of some of the worst of the Republicans because the Democrats thought they would be easier to beat. And it's a dangerous game to promote lunatics, you know, because in Germany, people never thought that Adolf Hitler was going to become Adolf Hitler. And he did. And they thought they could control him, and they could not. So it's a very dangerous game the Democrats are playing here.
Yeah, well, you know, I heard some Republicans were doing a similar thing, making sure they help the far right wackos so that the more conservative Republicans would end up, you know, but it's a gamble you take, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Speaking of MAGA and extremisms, Kansas state had their ballot primary stuff, but on the ballot was an actual referendum about the Kansas Constitution and whether we're going to save abortion rights or not. And I can say positively that the folks who wanted to keep the Constitution of the state of Kansas protecting abortion, they came out in droves and they won overwhelmingly in that Kansas vote. Whether that bodes well for other people who want to protect a woman's right to abortion, the right to choose, I'm not sure. Kansas might turn out to be an outlier. What else is out there that might say otherwise, election-wise?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what's out there, Eric, but I mean, I didn't know till you just said so that the vote was overwhelming. Because when I turned off the news last night, they were still talking about the 10% undecided, and that the ones who wanted to, you know, restrict abortion, well, end abortions, were leading in the polls. So I'm happy as heck to hear that the folks with, you know, common decency and sense came out to vote.
Evidently, the polls were wrong.
Yeah, I mean that
60-40,
overwhelming numbers.
Yeah,
I didn't have an actual number, but the headline was overwhelmingly voted to keep abortion safe in Kansas.
yeah, it was 60-40.
That's
We have
impressive.
issues in New York that people need to be aware of, because the lunatics are not just in other parts of the country. Elise Stefanik, who is a congressional representative from upstate New York, has had outrageous positions. She just attacked the New York State Board of Regents for having the believing in diversity in curriculum and believing in teaching the truth. And she had been attacking the Board of Regents. And then we have Zeldin, who and Zeldin and Stefanik both, you know, were big advocates of Stop This Deal and that the 2020 election was stolen. So New York, we can't rest on our laurels. We have a lot of loonies in this state as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that because I know there's a whole section of Queens and beyond that's MAGA country. So just because New York City, Manhattan may not be MAGA country, that doesn't mean the rest of the state doesn't lean that way in certain quarters. So, but anyway, to get back to not just New York, let's talk about the bill that Schumer and Manchin put together that everybody was patting themselves on the back, but I hear tell that they forgot to talk to Kyrsten Sinema. Speaking of Arizona, we were talking Arizona earlier, we should have done that segue. I hear that she's sitting on the fence, mum as a magpie, normally not mum, but she's supposed to be sitting in the quote catbird seat, all these euphemisms. But the bottom line is the Democrats did not bring her into the negotiations, and now she's making them sweat about this vote. And I don't know, Ray, do you know when that Senate vote might be coming up?
Not sure. Not sure.
Back into this week that we're in now. By the time we air next Monday, they should have.
Yeah, by the time we air.
No,
right.
it appears now that she's demanding, well, what they call it a carrot and a stick bill. And a lot of the carrots are, tax breaks for companies that will finally invest in renewable energy.
Renewable energy.
And the stick is some tax increases for wealthy and for investment in fossil fuels. And she wants some of those tax increases cut out because she gets donors who give her money in Arizona. Manchin, I can't believe this, but in order to get him so that we don't all fry to death, they had to agree to expand fossil fuel production in the Gulf of Mexico and in Alaska. And they actually gave him a personal natural gas pipeline to run from West Virginia to Virginia. So my guess is she's looking for a couple of perks for herself. And, the Democrats, in order to get the bill through the Senate without filibuster, have to call it a budget bill rather than a climate change bill.
Budget reconciliation. Yep.
Yeah, and again, Bernie Sanders, who I like, Bernie Sanders said they gave up too much. Now, my guess is that he's going to vote for it in the end anyway, but he was a little bit pissed because this was originally part of the Build Back Better bill. And what Bernie points out is that in order to get Manchin and Sinema to support this bill, they had to drop expanding Medicare. They had to give up pre-kindergarten for youngsters. They had to give up a higher minimum wage. And they gave up an awful lot to get Manchin to sign up. But the reality is not one Republican has signed up to protect the environment. Not one Republican has signed up for environmental justice. Something, Utah's burning. Idaho's burning. I mean, what's going on? Where's their brains?
Well, you know what? In this particular instance, it's better to get a little bit of something than nothing, especially when you got a climate crisis. And so I'm guessing that the Democrats in power said, all right, let's see what we can offset. The climate emissions that they gave to Manchin is more than offset by what they're gaining by what they got from the climate's new stuff. So that's one of the reasons why they made that deal. About the Medicare stuff that they gave up on, I got no info on that, but I think they said, we don't have anything if we don't have this, and that's why they went for that. But the other bill that was interesting to me as a former military person, is the PACT bill about the burn pits. And that's worth a quick discussion, guys. I know we're probably running out of time, but talk about the fact that 11 Republicans voted against that bill. It was 86 to 11 or something to that effect. The bill that they passed to fund the treatment of veterans because of the burn pits, all the disease.
Explain briefly, I know what it is, but for the listeners, explain briefly what the burn pit is.
Yeah, that's where they take all those chemical stuff, bad stuff, the chemicals, the whatever, you name it, and they throw them in a pit and they just burn them to get rid of them. But
right, it was quick and dirty disposal, right? Yeah,
the fumes that come from those burn pits, toxic fumes. So anybody sitting anywhere, you don't even have to be standing next to the pit. Wherever it wafts and floats to, you start breathing that stuff. 10 years down the road, you got soft tissue cancer, you got all kinds of other stuff that's going to kill you. And so they've been telling these people, no, you didn't get that in Iraq and Afghanistan. You went in with stuff like that. That's an underlying or whatever. They've been lying to them. They wouldn't give them money to treat themselves. The VA wouldn't. So this bill gives them the money to treat that. I think it also retroactively starts to treat some of the veterans they were not treating for Agent Orange illnesses. They put that in the bill as well. So, but I remember you talking about checking on who voted against it, guys. 86 people voted, 11, all Republicans, voted against the bill. Fortunately, it passed, but who were these 11 Republicans?
Not one of them was a military vet. Here we have the party that proclaims its patriotism, and they vote no on health benefits for vets. and none of them served.
I can well
Usually
imagine.
the way they have
What's
no-
that notable name? Go ahead, Ray.
No, I was just gonna say, it's usually the people who have never been in the service that vote against these proposals. Because if you've been in the service, you know the necessity of them. And it's easy to sit on a desk without the experience and say, well, that's too much money. And it may, is it more money than it costs to finance that damn war in the first place?
Yeah, how about that?
I just don't. I don't understand it. And as you say, for a country that is always proclaiming how beloved and how we stand behind our military, we let them go down the drain when it comes time to put the rubber to the road, man. I mean, we're just not taking care of veterans. We didn't do it after the Vietnam War. We didn't do it after the Gulf War. We haven't done, I don't think we've done it since the First World War. Maybe after the Second World War. I can't comment on that. I mean, a lot of benefits came the way of veterans, but not anymore.
No,
Not anymore.
John Stewart worded it quite well. He said, all these, he might not have used a profanity, but these Republicans that voted against that bill, he said, there's never been a war they weren't ready to sign up for and sign on.
Right.
There's never a veteran that they weren't willing to stiff.
No kidding.
And we have about a minute left.
He phrased it perfectly.
There's a senator from Idaho who voted no. And in some ways, his last name kind of characterized the entire Republican Party.
What is
His
it?
name is Senator Mike Crapo.
I love that.
Yeah, perfect.
He's got the nerve to run.
We're just about out of time. We didn't hit the drone strike on El Zawardi. We didn't hit Nancy Pelosi's trip. I vote for Nancy's trip. We can talk about that another time. Tired of people worrying about we're pissing China off. China's been a human rights violator. They were worse than Saudi and a bunch of other stuff. We're supposed to get those Olympics that they got. So these people that keep male culpa as far as China's concerned, I'm with Nancy Pelosi. And with that, this has been Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony. Catch up to us on Twitter and YouTube at Media Watch EVT.
I'm Raymond Peterson, here sometimes.
I'm their friend and guest Alan Singer. Thank you for having me.
And we'll catch you the next time, folks. Stay safe, wear a mask. We got all kinds of stuff still floating around out here.